director and founder of SEA-Junction. And SEA-Junction, as you know, for those who have been here before, is this public venue in Bangkok, which focuses on Southeast Asia, all kinds of aspects and dimension of Southeast Asia, and particularly emerging and current issue of great relevance. And migration is one of the issues we pay quite a lot of attention to. And today we have the honor of discussing something which is rarely actually talked about in the field of migration in Thailand. Mostly focus is on migration from neighboring countries, from Laos, Myanmar, and Cambodia. But there is also, of course, expat migration and also migration increasingly from Africa. So I think this is quite an exciting research that has been conducted. And I was very eager to have, I have tried long time to have Ajahn Supang and Ajahn Naruemon present this research. And finally, we have been able to host them. Unfortunately, Ajahn Supang got COVID, so this is why she's not here with us, but she is online. She was supposed to be here also at SEA-Junction. We have a very distinguished group of speakers, mostly are all writers of this book. We have also here, initially it was not planned, but we are very happy to also have the editor of the book. The other editor, co-editor, is Elżbieta. Sorry if I pronounce wrongly, but Elżbieta is one of the editor, and Ajahn Supang is the other editor of this book. And here we have two of the writer of the chapter, Anthony and Ajahn Naruemon, and they will introduce themselves later on when it's their turn. And we are again very pleased to have with us Ajahn Kasit. Ajahn is more in terms of honorific title. Here is a quite well-known diplomat and former minister. So we had him to talk about Myanmar, but now he's going to comment on the issue of migration from Africa to Thailand. So maybe we start with Ajahn Supang first.
Thank you. Thank you, Leah. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Good afternoon. I would like to greet the audience at the SEA-Junction. Start with Excellency Kasit Piromya, who kindly accepted to be our speaker today, which is we are very excited to learn that you agree to come and discuss, and also to greet with other friends who contribute to the book, Anthony, Ajahn Naruemon, Professor Elżbieta. Let me call Elżbieta easier, not to be pronouncing incorrectly. and welcome to all the audience who are now at SEA-Junction. So Leah, you like me to start talking about the book now, or just greet?
Please. Yes, you can start to talk about the book, introduce the book. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. This book, African Migration to Thailand, is a project of 5 years. Finally, we just learned that it took us 5 years to have the book. It started in the year 2018, back to 2018, at Chula. At that time, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, with the office called TICA, Thailand International Cooperation, what's the full name? Agency, TICA, decided that they would want to give scholarship to overseas students. before that, Thailand usually offers scholarships to students from ASEAN because they are our neighbors, and we are familiar with students from Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, Philippines, Indonesia in our international program at Chula. But this time, in 2018, Thailand expanded to cover African countries. And that's for the first time that we had students in our class who came from Nigeria, who came from Kenya. And we start to discuss with them about their opportunity to be here. And we learned that not only students, but there are also those who would like to come for fellowship, or those who want to do the the short-term study in agriculture and other things that African countries consider as useful to learn from Thailand. So from that, students whom some are watching Facebook Live too, they decide to prepare their thesis on Africans in Thailand based on their experience. One work on urban refugee, and the other work on other groups, including tourists and traders. When they finished their thesis, we found that it is very interesting for Thai people and Thai academics to learn about those things. So we got the idea, and we asked the Chula ASEAN Study Center at that time to support us to have this idea of having a book about Africans in Thailand, and we think about expanding that to cover other aspects, including those who came as gems trader in Kanchanaburi, in Chantavanich, and and some others like athletes, because at that time African athletes, especially footballers, were considered as very popular because of their high endurance. So with that, we started the idea, and it is very fortunate for us that during that time, Professor Gotsiak, Elspita Gotsiak, came to Chula as a visiting fellow and stayed with us for 6 months. And we share our common interest in Africa. And with that, we started the idea that we should produce an edited volume, and we should be the editors and invite Chula and other Thai researchers or academics, and invite some other Africans to contribute to the book. And that's how the book started. And finally, we finished that, and Elspita kindly helped to have the book published by Routledge in the series, what is it called? Series on Asian migration, and it just appeared early this year. So for SEA-Junction to have the idea of working with Chula in order to discuss about this book, it is a great idea that we strongly welcome. And for today, I think that we can have more information about the book and more perspectives from the speakers and from the audience. And that's what I would like to talk for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And maybe we give the opportunity to the other co-editor to say a few words.
Okay, let me try to. Doesn't like it. I was going to share my screen with you, but somehow it is not letting me to do it. But but anyway, well, thank you for inviting me, although, you know, I'm sorry it was the last minute when I agreed to do it because I've been traveling between the US and Poland. In any case, those of you who had a chance to peek at the book, you know that it includes 9 chapters. Focusing on different kind of things, including, you know, some very scarce statistical information on how many people, who they are, that sort of thing. Then the 3 themes that appear in the subtitle of the book, and that is mobility, race, and integration. It's followed by a chapter by Supang and Varanya on policy to provide the reader with the context of what's the Thailand's immigration policy, because as Supang already alluded, you know, many different kinds of Africans are in Thailand or want to come to Thailand, including refugees, labor migrants, traders, athletes, and so forth. Then come 2 chapters on Somalis, and although they are linked, and actually the population that is studied in both of those chapters comes from the same part of Somalia. One of them focuses mainly on women, and the other one provides 3 case studies of people who left for the very same reasons, meaning being refugees, being fearful of the Al-Shabaab and that sort of thing, but who use very different strategies to arrive in Thailand. So as a student, as a business person, and as a refugee. And then I won't talk much about chapter 6 since Naruemon and Anthony, who are the authors of it, are here, but the next chapter is about Nigerian traders in Bangkok. Then we have a chapter by Piromya about African gem traders in Chantavanich, which is a little bit of a historical piece as well, because this is not a new thing that is happening. And then we have a chapter about the footballers, and then and finally Supang and I finish with, you know, looking ahead. What does it mean? This is exploratory, preliminary research, mainly done by students. So, you know, there are limitations to what has been found out. And that sort of thing. The first thing is one wonders is about, well, how many Africans do we have? And does the Royal Thai government keep track of it? Do they keep track of the ethnicities or nationalities and that sort of thing? And that information is very scarce. So we do invite the government to think about, you know, the necessity and the usefulness for them as well to have that information at their fingertips. When we were asking for the information, then we only had the 2010 census, because then the pandemic, spoiled the ability to do the 2020 census. And according to that, there were a little over 8,000 Africans living in Thailand. The vast majority were males. In our chats with Anthony, for example, it looks like the estimates on the ground are perhaps higher. This is also a mobile population. So, you know, depends on the time period that you're really looking at it. In any case, you know, when we started doing it, we were by many discouraged to do it simply because it's very difficult to contextualize it in the wider academic literature. There is nothing. The only thing that we found were news articles, and oftentimes very skewed, very pejorative, only about the criminal cases and that sort of thing. So, but nevertheless, you know, we persevered and thought that the book that, you know, exploratory study, but that sits at the intersection of race and migration studies would be a good way to show the challenges and the successes that Black migrants face trying to integrate into the Thai society. So as you can see from the table of content, you know, there's all sorts of people that contributed to it. the book also brings some theoretical contributions to migration studies, because Fatma, for example, Isa, who is writing about refugees, she looks at the concept of precarity and human security. Those of you who are in security studies know that no longer we only look at national security, and terrorism and that sort of thing, but we think nations are secure when humans that live within those nations are secure. She also looks at the very interesting concept, also not unpacked in the literature, and that's visibility and invisibility, as on one hand a vulnerability, and on the other hand a coping strategy. Read that chapter. It's very interesting because, of course, by the way that they present themselves physically, they're very visible. There are not that many Black people living in Thailand, but on the other hand, they need to be visible to authorities on one hand if they want, for example, refugee status and that sort of thing. On the other hand, they want to make themselves invisible because perhaps they can be accused of being undocumented. George looks at the concept of precarity, and not just from the economic point of view, but also at legal precarity. There's three cases that he unpacks there, especially the refugee woman. This is a very precarious legal situation because, as we know, Thailand is not a signatory to the convention and the refugee protocol. Therefore, even if she receives a bona fide status from UNHCR, her only option is really to be resettled in a third country. And then I will skip over Anthony's and Naruemon so they can showcase their own chapter. And then Premjar looks at integration, both economic and social integration in Chantaburi, and that the niche economy and the niche migration. But it's an interesting thing because there is also, her chapter brings to mind the book by Appadurai, A Fear of Small Numbers. There's not that many people, but how many is too many for the local traders and other Thais to think that, well, yes, these people have a good chance of integrating, or no, there's too many of them and they're overwhelming the community. And then finally, Gabriela and Nitis look at the African footballers also in the context of the changing rules of how many foreign footballers can be on a Thai team and that sort of thing. So those are, the kinds of things that we were looking at. The race thing is a very, especially as a white girl talking about race in Thailand is a very challenging thing. And it's also an interesting thing to look at one hand at the Constitution, the 2007 Constitution that says, everybody's equal, everything is fine. However, when you look even at Thai scholars contesting that, they will say, yes, but the legislation, there's no legislation on racial discrimination or hate speech. There is no mechanism to report and have a recourse if somebody is discriminated on the basis of the skin color and that sort of thing. If there is quite a bit of research on race and racism in Thailand, but these studies are conducted mainly by non-Thai scholars, and that's, of course, as an anthropologist, I would always want the insider's point of view. So I would like Thai colleagues to be looking at it, but perhaps it's not an easy thing to do it. From my discipline, where I sit, from anthropology, Jen Weissman is the major researcher that has done a big qualitative study of the Thai racial discourse. Then you have another anthropologist, Amare Tagbaru, who's an Ethiopian, and he has a fantastic article, which is a first-person account of the racial prejudices against him when he worked within the UN system in Thailand. And then, you can criticize this and say, well, is it a post-colonial, kind of a thing or what? But many scholars will look at the intersection between religion and race. We'll look also at folklore, if you will, and how in sayings, in pictures, in that sort of thing, black equals ugly and white equals beautiful, and stemming from that, the othering of non-Thai people, and where the cosmetic industry, of course, contributes to it, where the fair skin is linked to modernity and that sort of thing. So a lot of stuff, a lot of very different kind of things to be looking at. What do we need to know? And what do the policymakers need to know? So of course we need to know, who are these people? Are they immigrants, or are they sojourners? Are they circular migrants, or are they using circular migration as a strategy to stay for shorter or longer period of time? As an applied anthropologist, I always ask, well, who needs to act and do something? And the simple answer is everybody. There's obviously a need for more research and more data, but also the rights-based immigration and integration policies at the national level are important, but action at the community level is equally important, if not more important, because integration, when you look at any community in the world, happens on the ground, so happens in the place. And I'll stop here. We've also produced a little video, so I'm not sure if you're going to show it, but
we have not been able to download it, unfortunately, but maybe you can send another link if you still can. In the meantime, we go to our speaker here in Bangkok. So we will start with Ajahn Naruemon. Maybe you can talk more about your chapter as well as other thought, and then we will have Anthony before going to our final commentator.
Thank you. I will be brief because I co-author with Anthony. But for this book, I may also would like to, support or second Esbita. The subtitle we call Race, Mobility, and Integration. I think this is also, this book, as Professor Supang talked, I involve at least 3 other. One is Fatma, who was an MA student from Kenya, under, as Professor Supang said, from Tiger Scholarship, and George, who is also a student of Professor Supang. I think for those who are interested on the issue of urban refugee, these 2 chapters should be the one that you read. That why? Because Thailand never talk about refugee for the urban refugee issue. So how do they survive? Can they call themselves invincible or something like that? I think people, when we talk about urban refugee, we always thinking about North Korea, Hmong Laotians. But I think in reality, in case of Thailand, the Somalia case, the Pakistani case is also interesting. But the reason that the title called race, because they are very, very different when we comparing with the ASEAN urban refugees such as the Hmong Lao. So I will not elaborate more. I would suggest you to read that 2 chapters. And then another 2 chapters. Another 2 chapters is also involved with me in some way about the footballer, because we have a student talking about football, and Thailand really aiming to get like an international player. And the first player, if you're looking at the Buriram United, you bring African footballer. And that they are not refugee comparing with the Somalia. They are, we might call them as the labor migration in some way, whether we call unskilled or semi-skilled or skilled migrant, and they come, and how do they integrate? But the way that the Thai government treat the footballer will be different. And the last one that I co-author with Anthony, but I will ask Anthony to add it more, is that the case of the issue of race and mobility, in a sense that the case of the Nigerian people who also coming to Thailand, maybe because of the conflict inside, and also situation of the economy. But we can see that, I mean, this will not about to follow Espita. This is not the issue of refugee, but how the Thai policy maker dealing with the non-Thai citizen, and especially who are appearance different from other. And for me, it's not in the title, but I think it's also linked to the issue of class. So it's not only race, but it's also related to the class. So the book itself, the one that we co-author, and also the chapter that used to draft as the manuscript before it has been developed as the chapter, it also tells us about when we talk about the issue of migration, we always seeing the migration through, I mean, people come as a labor migration. So the book itself tells us from two things. One is that perspective from those who are non-Thai, the migrant themselves, either they are refugee migrant, whether they are labor migrant, whether they are skilled migrant, and whether they are what you call business in that way. So this is the issue that how with different status, the way that the Thai legal system treat will be different. So this is a very interesting. The second one in short is that how the mobility happen. What are the migration route? How do they come here? They are not the one like the Myanmar who next to Thailand in the border, but these people have to fly, maybe come with the tourist visa, and how do they come here? How they can, what are the migration road? What type of mobility? And last one, are they integrate or not able to integrate in Thailand? So I think this is the thing that we found out. So to sum up, the contribution of this book is not only open for the reader to understand that when we talk about migration in Thailand, not only ASEAN, not only Burmese or Myanmar, but we have African, and we will see it more and more because of the globalization, because of transnational crime. If you go to Mesot, you might see some traffic victim from Africa that work in Shwekoko or something like that. So you will see that will be the more African people in Thailand. And second things, the book offer perspective from insider. So it's not only us who are outside and try to understand them, but those who are inside, they themselves tell us what do they think and what do they feel. So I think this is the contribution of the book. So I encourage everyone to visit and maybe buy. I cannot guarantee how much you can get the discount, but we will try our best. Thank you.
Okay, so we can also make photocopy, of course, but don't tell. Okay, I am joking, of course. Now, Anthony, who was actually also one of my students at the MAIDS program, and now is, I understand, a PhD candidate plus teacher, mathematics and English in school, maybe can in Trang. But so please tell us about the chapter.
Thank
and
you.
your other experience.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I want to say thank you for creating this opportunity, you know, for us to meet and share such knowledge with people. Obviously, before I get started, let me also say thank you to His Excellency Kasit Piromya. When I saw your profile, it actually motivated me to want to be here today for some obvious reasons, because I realized that you were among the people who actually pioneered the Thai African initiative then as foreign minister. So I think this will also give you a chance to sit back and reflect on the job you've done before and see how much progress you've actually made between Thailand and Africa. Okay, so back to my topic. Obviously, they've laid a solid foundation, an introduction to the topic already. So I don't have to say much about the introduction aspect. But again, I just want to start by saying that writing about African migrants in Thailand is quite challenging, because here we're talking about race, which is just like an elephant in the room in the context of Thailand. And those who are familiar with the issues know what I'm talking about. And it's quite challenging, but we put a lot of effort to actually see how to navigate around some of those sensitive areas, when you talk about race, especially in the context of Africa, it matters. Okay. Obviously, much has been written about migrants in Thailand, but there is more emphasis on migrants from Southeast Asia, particularly Laos, Myanmar, and the integration experience of these people in Thailand. But there is little or no literature on Africa. And we're not sure why that was actually the case, but we're glad we just made an inroad, and hopefully we hope that further studies will be upon that and see how we create better understanding about African migrants. In my own chapter is actually part of my PhD studies. So basically, we started with a kind of informal conversation about Africans. And then eventually we decided it's something worth doing, because Nigerian migration to Thailand, for instance, dates back to the 1980s. And it was actually born out of necessity. It was a child of necessity. It's a long way to go, but just to give you a brief introduction, Thailand happened to find itself in similar political situations, which have to do with the Thabchumpon crisis, the economic financial crisis, at a time when Nigeria was also having similar conflict, basically dealing with political instability and all of those things. Also, at the regional level, China was also involved in the Tiananmen Square crisis that isolated these countries. And Thailand politicians reeling with the difficulties in, gaining public kind of approval again. Nigeria was in the same soup, and then China. So this brought Nigerians, African leaders specifically, for the first time closer to Asia. And for the first time, there was a kind of bilateral understanding, even though it was established earlier on, like in 1962, when Thailand first established diplomatic relations with Nigeria. But it wasn't until this period when the relationship actually took a different shape. And for the first time, Nigerians start migrating to Thailand. But the experience was not good. The first Nigerians who actually came to Thailand came as traders. They trade in rice and inexpensive clothing, to Africa. And then subsequently, new people came in, and they came basically as economic migrants. So far, literature's review have shown that Nigerians in Thailand do not come to seek asylum, no. Basically, Nigerians are predominantly economic migrants. So they're driven by Thailand economic growth, and I would say the economic advantage Thailand enjoy over Africa in terms of infrastructure and peace and stability. So this is actually what is driving Nigerian migrants to Thailand. But then in Thailand, Nigerian migrants face a problem of misconception and misperception. Basically, seen from a color perspective, Africans are just the same. In a common Thai way, they say same. I can imagine as a person sometimes people look at me and call me my friend's name, and then the next time they call my friend my name because of lack of enough exposure or interaction between Thais and Black people. actually create cloud of, you don't want to use the term ignorance, you know, in terms of differentiating between who is who. So this made it really very difficult for them to differentiate between some few guys who are involved in illegal activities, which is also a kind of stereotype Africans have got to deal with. And I think this also resonates from the fact that we all look the same, so we can easily inherit some other person's iniquities. So it makes it really difficult to actually differentiate who is who. And to actually conduct this study, we took a long time to think about a suitable method to use, and then we decided we can actually look at the case from the perspective of intersectionality and ordering. Like I say, it's a very sensitive case. So we're looking at the concept of ordering and belonging. I personally became very careful about trying to create a knowledge about the issue, but also at the same time, ordering Thai people again, you know. So we strike a balance between using insider's perspective, looking at the whole cases or issues from Nigerian perspective, as well as Thai perspective, to create a balance. So that's actually one beautiful thing I did in my own chapter. So as for the finding, we realized that actually Africans are other at the intersection of gender, color, and race. So when you talk about race, Africans misperceive a long colonial history, mostly in Thailand. Most Thai people misperceive Africans along colonial lines. And we all know Africa was once colonized by the British. And then also you have the history of slavery, which still resonates strongly. Now I can recall so many times when people look at me and call me Negro, you know, so I laugh at that. It doesn't make me angry actually, because I know it's just out of sheer ignorance, you know. So what I do as a person, when I have such personal experience, I see it as an opportunity to actually educate the people, to let them know, yeah, that was actually part of history. But then that was gone. The past is in the past, and we need to move on, you know. So cut the whole story short, in terms of gender, we realize that African physical phenotype actually is racialized to an extent where, for instance, most Thai people see Africans as being too physical, and then they get easily scared when they see Africans. So a lot of times you're walking even on the hallway and people just bump into you and they like yell and you wonder like, what's going on, you know? But we realize that according to some of our participants in the study, they say it is because they're not used to Africans and we are too big, you know? So, and some of them would say you're big and then black at the same time, and something that scared them. You know, so we realize that actually most of the things that happen do not happen because they have bad intention, but it's just a natural kind of feeling they had because of lack of, I should say, considerable interaction between Africans and Thais. So the findings were actually interesting, and like they said, theologically, it actually contribute to creating a kind of new perception, a new way we can actually look at, if you like, racism. I don't want to use that term, you know, a new way of looking at race as something that actually most people misconstrued. A lot of time we think people are racist, but they're actually not. They're just ignorant. And therefore, we actually have to think of ways to actually increase our interaction, maybe through cultural exchanges. And like Supang just said, and Professor Naruemon also supported that. We are really pleased that recently we see more and more Africans coming to Thailand, especially with regards to education. And we look forward to actually see more Africans coming to Thailand, and hopefully that will help to bridge the gap in terms of interaction. That's all I can say for now. I will wait for your questions, actually. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very important points. I will give the word to His Excellency Kasit first, and then we have the short video to show before going to the question and answer. Please.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for this honor of having me to say something about Thailand's relationship with the African continent. But first of all, I would like to express my high appreciation and congratulations, I think, to the team that produced this particular book. It will again sort of provide a starting point once again to help intensify the understanding and the knowledge between Thailand and the African countries. But I would like to comment that I will recommend that it should be summarized in the Thai language in order to reach out to as many of the Thai public as possible, especially in the academic world, in the media in particular, and also to the business and to the industries of the private sector and so on. They need to know more about Africa as a whole. Let me capture the picture of the Thai relationships a bit, that where is it, where was it, and so on, and what would be the future direction. First is that we have an embassy in Egypt, in Morocco, in Senegal, in Nigeria, in South Africa, and in Kenya, and also I think in Madagascar for the gem trade and so on. Not yet enough. We have to open more. You know, either the embassy or the consulate or even the trade and investment and tourism offices and so on, more into the direction of Central Africa. I think that's the missing element for the time being. And when I was at the helm of the Foreign Office, I think we did visualize Africa into, I think, 5 major regions. So the policy direction under my command at that time was to divide or to go according to what the Africans have already, I think, placed themselves geographically, namely Northern Africa, where most of them are the Arabs. Then we have East Africa, Tanzania, Kenya, and so on. Then we have the South Africa types, you know, South Africa itself and the smaller state, Lesotho, and so on, in around that. Then we go to, I think, West Africa, from Nigeria onwards and so on to Senegal. I myself did have a chance to visit, I think, Egypt, of course, Morocco, Liberia, Guinea-Bissau, Togo, Gabon, Mali, and so on, to promote Thai economics relationship with Africa. I also went to Kenya for the bilateral, but of course there are, I think, 2 UN agencies there, one on habitat, the other one has to do with the climate change and so on. So I have an inkling about Africa with my physical presence there. And the fact that Africa for so many decades now has been a major importer of Thai rice. I think we are one of the major supplying more than 1 million tons a year. We were knowledgeable about the hardwood timber forthcoming and some of the raw materials, especially for the glass making and so on, that has to come from, I think, eastern side of Africa, and the possibility of importing more raw materials and so on. And on the manufacturing side, I think the Thai pickups and the auxiliaries and part for motor vehicles and so on, electrical equipment, and I think for electricity transformer and so on, we are quite competitive there. And of course, I think the textile and the garment trade. And at the moment, or in the next 25 years, I think Africa as a continent will have, I think, a very youthful population indeed, and it will be more urbanized, and therefore, and the population growth is going to be, I think, the highest in the world per continent and so on. So there will be a lot of potentials and possibilities for the Thai business people and for the Thai agricultural export and so on, because there will be a very big consuming population in the whole of the African continent. So that's on the economic, the trade side and so on. Second is, I think, as a policy, foreign policy direction, we have become a sort of a semi-donor country with the setting up of this TICA, Thailand International Cooperation Agency and so on. And I could claim that I was one of the young diplomats at the Foreign Office to have, I think, come out with the idea that we should not only remain a recipient country, but in the 1980s, with the high economic achievements and so on, we, the bureaucrats, were able to convince the then Foreign Minister, Chief Marshal Sitsuwesila, and especially the Prime Minister, General Prem Tinsulanont, that it's about time that Thailand become a donor country, to share the success story of our economic and social development. And we have been, I think, quite well versed, I think, in the hospitality industry, namely tourism, the tourism promotion and know-how. We are quite excellent in terms of the public health services and so on. I think second to none among the developing countries around the world. And then we have been very successful in the agricultural field and also in the agro industries, both in the plants and in the fishery and so on. And all of this we can share with the third world countries, fellow third world country, the South-South cooperation. That's why TICA was eventually set up. But that is to provide technical grant aid, scholarships and so on. But concurrently, there was another also similar to TICA attached to the Ministry of Finance, which provides soft loan to fellow developing countries. So far, it has been given more to the countries in Southeast Asia, namely to Burma, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. But it has started to extend to other fellow developing countries. So Thailand has been, for the past decades, been in the position to provide development assistance to fellow developing countries, as well as to provide financial soft loans and so on for the infrastructure development. And we, I think, have been, welcoming foreign students coming from not only in Asia Pacific, but from Africa and also from Latin America. So that has been the case of the changing pattern of Thai foreign policy direction as a small, medium-sized donor country. And at the same time, I think we were not shy to export those, what you call the so-called soft power in terms of the cultural activities and so on. And in food, we have to do more in Africa. But the interesting news is that so far there is one African Buddhist monk. I think he lives in Ghana. We hope that we could do more, not in terms of exporting Buddhism, but I think the Buddhist aspect of meditation, of the idea of moderation and balance and so on, that could, I think, run hand in hand with King Bhumibol, King Rama IX, with his thought and thinking on how Thailand should challenge globalization through the introduction of the idea on the sufficiency economy, on how one should prepare oneself, how should one prepare your business and your activities and so on, in the context of moderation, planning, knowing your strength and your weaknesses and so on. So it's an idea about governance and management through His Majesty the King, which I think TICA, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, could also export to help our fellow African friends and so on on how to go about running a small farm and the SME business entities and so on. So this is what we have been doing so far, but there is not much of the continuity when you change the government and the foreign minister and so on. But hopefully with the elections after the 14th of May, a sort of a review and taking stock of Thailand's foreign policy direction towards Africa should be set up on the table and so on. And before, and also to renew, I think at the Foreign Office, we did set up a website on Thailand and Africa. I don't know whether it's dead or it's dormant and so on, but we need to reactivate that. And we need to have, I think here in Bangkok, hopefully that we could have a chance to talk to all the African ambassadors, at least to set up a sort of an African association in Bangkok, and to be a sort of the, I think the front office for Africa as a whole in Bangkok, and by extension, with Bangkok in the center of Southeast Asia, it could be the African center for the ASEAN community as a whole also. I think this is what we could do. And the fact that there are more and more direct flights, from Africa to Malaysia, Singapore, and Thailand, we should also work with the airlines to promote the relationship between Thailand and the rest of Southeast Asia with the African continent. But we need to have a more proactive ambassadors in Bangkok. They have to come out more. I have been quite disappointed that since I left politics, I have not had the chance to meet the African ambassador from the north down to the south. But I'm somebody in Bangkok. But they have not been coming, and would have been helpful and so on. And it would be easier to speak to me because I left politics. I'm no longer in the government. My life is more has to do with the work with the civil society organization. And one of the work is on the promotion of democracy and human rights. And I think in the books, there's a word about racism, forced labor, human trafficking, and so on. I think we could work together, and not only to simply speak to the immigration department, to the Thai police, or to the Ministry of Interior. We have to work together between the embassies and the Thai NGOs here to take up the issue with Thai parliamentarians and political parties, with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, with the National Security Council Secretariat, to relook at the whole thing and not to use the excuses of ignorance, of knowing, and so on in order to exploit our African friends who come here, most of them for trade. But because of the prejudice, or I think the lack of knowledge, or just simply moral corruption practices by the Thai security and the, I think, immigration and the police and so on, they have been exploiting many of our friends coming from Africa. They came, quite a few of them have become political urban refugees. But every day they are under the, I think, the threat of being arrested and sent into the detention camp, or if not, then you have to pay on a monthly basis for protection by the police and by the immigration officers and so on. It's a very sad and shameful things that have been happening in Thailand all along, not only at the Thai-Myanmar border, but I think in the midst of Bangkok, not far from here, there is exploitation and human trafficking and so on. We cannot allow this to go on, and we cannot simply rely only on the bureaucrats or in the incoming government. We, civil society organization, could do a lot more, in order to put the whole things in a proper course. And one other point is that universities in Thailand have been setting up ASEAN Study Center, American Center, Chinese centers, and a lot of universities also allow the Chinese Confucius Institute to set up and so on. It's about time that Thai universities, particularly Chulalongkorn, Thammasat, Kasit, Mahidol, and maybe up there in Chiang Mai and Songkhla, to have more African center. And okay, but it has been sleeping. You know, they should invite me to give a speech, but you should use this in order to disseminate. And I could be of help because I am also a fellow at ISIS Chulalongkorn, and I'm also a fellow at the CPG German Law Center at the legal department of the Thammasat University. And I have been complaining that a lot of seminars like this have been conducted in the English language because only academics, foreign professors, lecturers come, and of course, ambassadors and diplomats do come. But we have to have a series of seminars in the Thai language for the Thai public in general. And so I think that's very important indeed. You know, I have been speaking on the panel almost every 2 weeks, but most of the time it's all in the English language and not in the Thai one. But it's about time that Thai University, I have been complaining this with the political science department of both Thammasat and Chulalongkorn that they have to do the Thai one and so on. So this is something. And I think SEA-Junction could also do the Thai version. It would be very helpful. And we could work more and more together to bring about the knowledge of African history, which is not a dark continent at the time of slavery trade. There were kingdoms, there were civilization, there were philosophy, deep thinker, and all of this and so on, but it's not known. And it's about time that we come to know about it in order to appreciate the successful story of the African continent, as well as I think the potential of Africa as a whole, because it will be the youngest continent with so many young people. And so far, I think the modern music, I don't know what is the African, I think many of your jazz band and so on from Nigeria, from South Africa have become world famous. Yeah, but they are not known here in Bangkok or in Singapore, and then that's shameful. Okay. Yeah, okay, we do that. But this is something. Okay,
so
one last point. This is
last
something that the
to play.
African embassies have to work together to have the soft power of the African continent on the soils of Thailand and ASEAN. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we will have our African participants sing soon about to hear the voice of the continents. But before that, let's look at the video. I think it's a short 7 minutes video about migration of Africa related to the book. And then we open for question.
Thailand is known for its tropical beaches, opulent royal palaces, and ornate Buddhist temples. All these wonders attract millions of visitors. In 2019, Thailand welcomed 40 million visitors, mostly tourists from the global north. But Thailand is also a regional migration hub within Southeast Asia. In 2019, the migrant population stood at 4.9 million. Migrant workers from Myanmar, Laos, and Cambodia constitute the lion's share of Thailand's migrants. But migration to Thailand remains heterogeneous and includes stateless persons, asylum seekers, urban refugees, professional workers, foreign investors, foreigners married to Thai nationals, students, and retirees. Africans are relatively recent newcomers to Thailand and would welcome an expanded opportunity to open businesses and settle in the country. Exactly how many Africans live in Thailand remains somewhat of a mystery. According to the 2010 census, 8,166 African expatriates lived in Thailand. The vast majority were male, 5,421 men versus 2,097 women. Most lived in municipal areas. There's no academic literature on Africans in Thailand. African Migration to Thailand, Race, Mobility and Integration, edited by Elżbieta Goździak and Supang Chantavanich, is the first attempt to provide empirical data about African immigrants to Thailand. Sitting at the intersection of race and migration studies, This book focuses on the challenges Black migrants face trying to integrate into a country that has had very limited contact with and knowledge about Black Africans. Bringing together research from African, Thai, and European scholars, this volume focuses on forced migrants such as Somali asylum seekers and labor migrants, largely African men seeking better livelihoods in niche economies such as gem trading, garment wholesale, and football playing and coaching. The book also includes theoretical contributions to migration studies. Fatma Issa unpacks the concept of precarity and human security. Issa also writes about the tension between visibility and invisibility as a vulnerability on the one hand and a coping strategy on the other hand. George Chiare conceptualizes precarity not only as an economic issue, but looks also at legal precarity. Anthony Unor and Naruemon Thabchumpon use the concept of othering to understand discrimination against African entrepreneurs. Premjar Voransipal frames economic and social integration of African gemstone traders in Chantaburi as niche economy and niche migration. Gabriela Romero and Nitis Tamasangadipa discuss the integration of African footballers on and off the field using social becoming as a collective practice to overcome one state of what Bloch calls the state of not yet. Supang Chantavanich analyzes the Thai migration policy context and the challenges facing Thai's policymakers, law enforcement, and the migrants themselves. Within these diverse research foci and diverse theoretical frameworks, three major themes surface: race, mobility, and integration. They appear in the title of this book and crisscross each and every chapter. The book provides but a glimpse at the issues facing African migrants and Thai policymakers, as well as migrant advocates and migration scholars interested in this relatively new group of migrants to Thailand. We certainly need to know more about these newcomers to Thailand. Are they immigrants or sojourners? Are they circular migrants? Is circular migration a strategy many Africans use because there are no other options? Or would Africans who establish transcontinental enterprises want to continue to move freely between Africa and Thailand, even if an option to reside long-term in Thailand was available? Perhaps the circular mobility suits the niche economy migrants. There is also much we still do not know about asylum seekers from Africa, especially Somalia and Sudan, who are brought to Thailand, a country that is not a signatory to the 1951 Refugee Convention, by human smugglers. The information on the smugglers is very limited. How do they operate under the radar of immigration authorities? Are they part of an organized international smuggling network? Or are they opportunists operating on their own? Are Thai citizens involved in smuggling operations? The research that informs this volume focused mainly on African migrants and their perception of discrimination, othering, and racism. Where do these attitudes stem from? Do they mirror attitudes towards Africans in other parts of Asia? But what about members of the general public? In order to fully understand attitudes towards Africans, we must also study members of the wider Thai society. The perceptions as expressed by African migrants themselves offer but one side of the story. We must understand better the origins of the construction of blackness in contemporary Thailand. Thai preference for light skin is evident in the cosmetic industry that promotes peukao, white skin, and fashions a racist social technology. The idea that black is ugly and white is beautiful seems to stem from the notion that darker skin represents a life of manual labor in the sun and therefore a lower social class with lack of money and education, and white skin is a sign of privilege. Unfortunately, the Thai media contribute to the pejorative portrayal of Africans residing in Thailand. Most newspaper articles focus on arrests and crimes committed by Africans living in Thailand. There's virtually no human interest stories depicting the everyday challenges of being the other in Thailand. There is a need for more research and data, but they mean very little if not accompanied by action. Who needs to spring to action? The simple answer is everybody. While rights-based immigration and integration policies at the national level are important, action at the community level, where the web of local relationships determine the immigrant's experience, is equally, if not more valuable. I hope we sparked your interest in this book.
Thank you. Yeah, I think quite a comprehensive view of the book as well as the issue. So I open the floor. We have already one question from Facebook, but I will take two more questions from here. Yes, please. Introduce yourself and then ask the question briefly.
Thank you so much. Good evening. My name is Solomon Odero. I'm a Kenyan, and I'm so happy to come to this knowledge of this book, which I have a lot of interest in, Africans migrating in Thailand. This is the first session I think I've ever been in Thailand where I feel more African than before. There is nowhere people have spoken about Africans. It's all about Southeast Asia. It's all about Europe. It's all about Thailand. But today it's all about Africa, which is very interesting. Two questions. One, you've talked about Africans coming to Thailand, but then you're also talking about how they could also integrate so that the othering is understood well. In many cases, you will realize that in Thailand, not many people knows about Africa. Actually, if I ask them, do you know Kenya? Where is that? They know about South Africa, perhaps, but not about Kenya, not about Uganda, Congo, those ones are not. So what about integration, whereby also there's exchange? I've heard about the exchange about Thais and Africans, where they can also go and learn in Africa some cultures that could also help them. I don't know whether that is captured in the book, because I know there are greater universities in Africa. For example, if you go to Nigeria, there's one of the best universities, the University of Ibadan. If you go to Cairo, there's University of Cairo. If you come to Kenya, there's University of Nairobi, and so on. So that they could also understand about this culture of Africa. So then there is no othering, there is no racism, and then they accept about this one. Number two, about the sufficiency economy, which I think is something that I've learned in Thailand, which is also very important, and His Excellency has really alluded to that. Is it something that can also bring more about knowledge about Africa and what they can learn in Thailand? So then we have a comprehensive view about Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, one more. There are a lot of questions here. So, okay. Well, I can take three and then I will take, I want first in the back here, not Ben, because there, I think she was, I mean, there
I'm eager.
was trying,
Iga.
Iga was trying already to raise her hand for a long time. So, okay.
Okay, I'm Lalita Hanwong from Kasit University. Just to update that we do have a little program on Africa studies. Well, not exactly, it's a KU Africa-Asia program at our faculty, at the Faculty of Social Sciences. The fact that Kasit University has this program, which will be upgraded into a full center, hopefully this year, is the fact that Kasit has been working with Africa quite closely during the last 30 years. I presume that started in the 80s when the economic development, the economic relationship between Thailand and African countries started. But for me, I'm a historian by training. So the way I look at the matter is that Thai diplomacy towards towards African nations, it's always about, you know, we give something and you take it, yeah, and it's always grants or funding that ends, you know, and there's no follow-up, there is no intensive study of, you know, what will be next or what should be updated in the future. The fact that Kasit has been involved in this is because we are specialized in tropical agriculture, and clearly that's what African countries need the most. Yeah, and Tiger, once again, this is a great player, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as well, the African department. They are poorly funded, but they are so great. At my little program, we've been doing research for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We studied political risks of West African countries. This is, you know, basically just to facilitate the ministry to pick between West Africa and East Africa to have the next Thai embassy. Yeah, they are planning to have the next embassy in Africa, but they don't know if it should be in the West or in the East. We said the West, but then I'm pretty sure that they will go to the East because of, you know, Ethiopia, you know what it means for the African Union and all that. Just for your information, the Thai embassy in Madagascar has been closed for a very long time. And the latest embassy, the Thai embassy in Africa is in Mozambique. Yeah, so you may wonder why Mozambique. It's a very small country, Portuguese speaking, but it's very important for us in terms of gems, in terms of fish, lots of fish in the sea. I don't know why, I've never been to Mozambique. A lot of things I can share with you, but I don't think I have more time here. Yes, I don't have any question, but
Okay,
just
but
for my insights.
Thank you for the addition, and I think we will do a next event, right, in Thai, with probably inviting you to share your experience. I think beside the government, there have been also international funders who have facilitated collaboration between Asian. Now, taking my past place as Rockefeller Foundation, a lot was supported on agriculture exchange between Africa and Thailand, including Kasit University. So I think it's important to look also beyond the Thai states, because there have been efforts to bring together Asian and Africa in the past. Now here there is a last question from the floor for now, and then we do a second round because there is another question first here. Yeah, I will give you the next. Yeah.
Okay, I really appreciate this
Short.
meeting because it really showcased African in Thailand. However, I also want to mainly discuss about if Thailand is actually looking into conferences that focus on on Africans, because when we look at conferences and in aspect of historical conferences, we discovered that there have been Southeast Asia or or African and Asian conferences in the aspect of Bundan conference. And looking at it, the book is actually talking about integration, of which if you look at the Bundan conference, is majorly the location of this conference has always been Asia. It doesn't focus on Africa. So how can we now improve Africans' relation with Asia when all the conference location has always been Asia? My question first. Again, when we also look about the issue of language, this is another major issue here, because there are a lot of Nigerians in Chulalongkorn University, not just Chula, in Chiang Mai and even in Thammasat University, of which when we look at it, most of these Africans should I say, they find it very difficult to discuss with the locals, of which sometimes, even when Shula come up with the idea of bringing up language teaching of Thai, it still did not really focus on Africans in the schools, because I can actually say there's non-Africans attending the language course, because even when I want to register, some are actually being supposed to be paid for, and some are free, which is also good, but it needs to embrace all ethnic, which I want to also focus on that. And again, I like the idea of the African, I like the idea of the African Association in Thailand, because it's very necessary at this particular period of time to know that there are actually so many Africans in Thailand. And I will also want to say this, though it's very, it's something that is not supposed to be said, but there are a lot of Africans and especially Nigerians that are in Thailand, but the stereotype that Ajahn Anton talked about is the fact that they look at them as being evil or criminals. They really need to know these people before they just judge. And this is something that they should really work on. And the fact that the language is also breaking these barriers is really making it not to be spread. I wish there could also be an interpretation of Thai, African, English language that could actually speak to these people, that these people are actually not criminals. They are people like them. They are good ones like them as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Nigerian and Sicilian share the same. We are always thought to be criminal. Okay, so the question from the floor was about whether you conducted focus group discussion in Thailand for some more about the methodology of the book. So maybe you can expand on this. So please, Anthony, maybe you start and then I go.
Oh, okay, let me start with the question you
Short,
just raised.
so that we give another round.
Oh, okay, yeah. We did organize 2 focus groups actually with regards to my own part of the studies. We organized 2 focus groups, and the whole idea was actually reflecting on the perspectives from the participants and actually vetting on some of those contributions made by our participants to see how they actually fit into a broader perspective of the Nigerians in Thailand. So what I did then was that obviously it took like 5 years, as they've said. So occasionally I collect data, and after collecting the data, I analyze the data for teams that emerge. And then we organize focus group with Nigerians in Bangkok. So we sit together, and what I did was I give them opportunity to actually look at some of the data that have emerged and the insights shared by people on the field. And they also make contribution to some of those insights. So sorry that I didn't, emphasize on that while I was making my presentation. So yes, we did 2 focus group meeting or discussions during the study. So with regards to the question you raised about integration, I think it's really important. Yeah, when we're talking about integration, it's not just about giving us visas to come to Thailand. Okay, some 4 years ago, before the COVID-19, there was a meeting we had with the foreign minister in Thailand, and I raised a question about the idea that Nigerians come to Thailand to study, but they're not allowed to stay in Thailand. The Thai immigration regime is not quite friendly, and I think it's not helping, because you look at what's happening in Europe or in America. Nigerians constitute over 47% of educated people in America. They contribute immensely to American economy. In fact, there's no regime in America today where you can find Nigerians working in the White House. Nigerians in terms of academics, they're known globally. And they have actually made tremendous contribution towards Thai education. That is obvious. It's actually well acknowledged, even by the Ministry of Education. But the point is the visa regime is not helping. So when Nigerians graduate, instead of transiting into the economy so that they can actually use the knowledge to help and facilitate the kind of integration, the opportunities are not there. They just have to go back home. In fact, in the context of Thailand, your visa expires the day you graduate, and is that bad? Yeah, so sometimes even before you can put your ticket together and think of heading towards the airport, you overstay already. And, and then there's this stereotype that as a Nigerian, once you walk into the airport and the immigration officer spot your green passport, I mean, I'm speaking from personal experience, so many times, they just cross behind you and ask everyone to join the next line. And then they begin to ask you questions like a criminal. And a couple of times I don't say anything to them because to me it's stupid. I can't be in queue and wait for 15 minutes and just for the time for you to talk to me and then you ask everyone to join the next line. And I ask them so many times, why? And they say, you Nigerian. I say, so what? 20 years in Thailand. I should not be running around talking about visa. I should have citizenship in Thailand. 20 years, never involved in anything. So, and then the education system is not helping neither. So if we're talking of integration, we need to look at the education system because I teach in a primary school and I see the curriculum and I see the content taught to the students at that young age is nothing that encourages integration really. So I think this is also contained in Thai literatures. Most of the literatures don't say something good about dark skin. And we can see, like they said before, television ads not helping, the commercials, and so many things are involved. And this is not just happening in Thailand. For crying out loud, it's pretty common in Southeast Asia. So the problem is not just in Thailand. I think more work needs to be done. And like the Excellency says here, I think Thailand could be a starting point to actually create such awareness. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So to be in short, because we have so many people raise their hand. Well, yes, I mean, and I would like to, I mean, Ajahn Lalita already talked. Actually, Chula have some program, but big but. I mean, big but because it's just the what you call the talk by the university that we need to promote more like with the African, but it need to come into practice. For instance, I think you already see some student here from MES program already mentioned. We have ASEAN, non-ASEAN scholarship, right? But we don't have other. We don't have basically, I think this is also, it's not only the word that we would like to support the African to student to come to Thailand or to study in Chulalongkorn. I think, but in reality, when it go to, it's not only the issue of the visa regime, when it go to the issue of the finance and also other. So we're still trying to work it out. However, I think in some way, in that case, we got the Taika who already come in, but Taika itself also have a certain limitation and only certain perception, right? Taika will give you scholarship to come to Thailand, but study Thai study program, right? So it means that ask other to study your, not trying to talking about the issue of how to understand other. And the second thing with the word race mobility and integration with Espita on the back, I think we also have the problem of this integration, not only our policy, but I mean, if you're looking at the authority and also the society, I think the word integration in this book is also show that, I mean, like Anthony talked about the visa regime, Ministry of Foreign Affairs have one policy, Taika have another policy, Chula also have another policy, and none of us integrate with each other. So we have the issue of this integration, and I think this is a big problem.
Excellency, any comment on?
I think have to offer deep apologies, I think, on behalf of the good Thai people for the mistreatment by my corrupted immigration officers everywhere, and some of the Thai police and so on. Is shameful that we could do this to fellow human beings and so on. And I think it's in contravention to successive policy of Thai government, and also to in contravention to, I think, spirit and letter of the Thai constitution and so on, that we want Thailand to be one of the international center. We welcome foreigners, and that has been the policy all along. But when it comes to the implementation, then we have this what you call Afrophobia, racial prejudice, just simply inhuman exploitation of a fellow human being by the immigration and by the police officers, and at the same time also by the district officers in various provinces and so on. This is something that has to be redressed, and hopefully that we could work with the new government, with the new foreign minister, and a lot of things, or practically all the things that has to do with foreigners. I think is the discrepancy and the neglections of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, about convincing and working with the immigration, the police and the judicial bodies and so on, to work accordingly without any discrimination. We are parties to many of the UN conventions, and even we have not yet ratified the UN Conventions on Refugee. It doesn't matter. As a civilized nation, as a Buddhist-dominated society, we have to be kind to others. And then there are many international norms and culture, the Thai norms and culture, that we could act very nicely to immigrant workers, migrant workers, and to the refugees and the asylum seeker. I do not buy the excuses that Thailand has not ratified as yet the UN Refugee Convention. That's an excuse. We don't need any UN refugees or other convention and so on. We are a civilized nation, and we have to act accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, very quick, please. All those who have question, one first here, 2, 3, 4, and last comment there. Yeah, first. Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I'm from Vietnam. I come here study Chulalongkorn Buddhist University. Today, I would like to know how many percent Africa population in Thailand, and how they like about the job and education, and how to support them in Thailand, and they come about the illegal or legal. Thank you very much.
Okay. Here, Beverly. Yeah, Beverly, you? No, you didn't question? Oh, you did. Very quick. Yeah. Okay.
Has there been, there are families here, and many of the men are in trade, I understand. Many of the foreign people who are here from the West and other places have supported the embassy to set up a business community in the Chamber of Commerce, so that they speak for the traders. They speak for the families. They make sure that there is an umbrella that helps people integrate into the society. Has there been an attempt to set up a support system for Africans through the embassies? I think His Excellency also mentioned that would be good to get more of the African embassies actually active here to support those that are immigrated here. And especially in the traders, because the economic would also help with the schooling as well, and so forth. Has there been anything like that? Because most of us who have come here have orientation programs and a support of the community.
So have there been any orientation from the African embassy? Yes, please go to this side.
Yeah.
Okay, you are listening to the
So,
question, right?
I
Because- yeah.
appreciate your presentation of this book. My name is Elvis Obaru. I'm from Nigeria. I just want to make comments, not about questions on this. The issue of assimilation, that is integrations, whether the kingdom actually embrace you. Does the kingdom embrace us? Not only me as a Nigerian, but every foreigner who is in this kingdom. Every 90 days, even if you have 1 year visa, you must go to the immigration to say, I am here. Are you still in the same residence? No, that is it. Even if you are married in the kingdom, you have a baby, you will still show 400,000 baht. Leave it for 4 months in that account and say, if you take 1 baht from it, you can't get the visa. This is not about Nigerians alone. This is not Africans alone. It's all foreigners in this country. Retirement visa is 800,000 baht. You leave that money in that period, in that account. If you take anything out, then you cannot get that visa. This is for every foreigner residing in Thailand. For me, I'm making a research on the Myanmar border area of Myanmar. When I read about what is happening there, whether the signing of the UN protocol or this, I begin to feel for Myanmar people even more than myself. Whereas I'm not worried. Today, my child is a citizen of Thailand, but I'm a foreigner, right? I'm a foreigner. So where is the assimilation? Where is the coming together? So I'm very sure that I want to dive now to the area of education, because this is education issues. A student with 1 year visa who is going to study for 4 years program, we leave the school. Even if they have a class, we go to the immigration for 90 days. Often, I don't think this is ideal. And I urge that the Universities Commission have to meet together and meet with the parliament and discuss all this. Now, look at it from a different angle again.
I think that
Yes. Look at it from
because
this
there are still some people. I think the point is clear, and I fully
point is
agree
clear?
with you
Okay,
because
so-
I have the same
So
problem.
these
So-
areas, they should look into these areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think your point is very valid. All foreign have the same kind of problem. I have been here 20 years. I still have every year go to immigration too. So I think we are all frustrated about this. So year back and then.
Could I just intervene on this?
Please,
Because
quick.
it's
Yeah.
very important. Sorry to intervene. I just had very informal meeting with the new permanent secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I did submit to him, not only verbally, but in written form, with the suggesting that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs must take it into its own responsibility to talk to the National Security Council and the Immigration and the Police Department to change the whole, this endless, every 3 month renewal of visa, and the merry-go-round of having to fly to Penang or Vientiane in order to get the visa to come back again. This is stupid. And this is an opening way for the immigration people to get money under the table. I think it's about time that the Thai government and the civilized Thai society end all of these corruption practices and the abuse of the human rights of the people. I will still pursue this with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, but we collectively, on one hand, and maybe with all the various ambassadors and so on, another one, in parallel, we have to take up all of this issue with the Minister of Foreign Affairs first in the new government after the elections on the 14th of May. It must be a collective undertaking altogether, and to change all of this of, I think, unreasonable, illogical behavior that is prone to a lot of corruption practice and abuses and so on. Thank you.
Very true. Okay. Ben,
Yes,
please.
thank you for that. I sincerely hope that you're correct on that point. My name is Ben Harkins. I'm with the International Labor Organization. Very quick point. It does seem very clear that there's no very distinct Thai policy on African migration to Thailand, but to the extent that there is one, it seems to be highly focused on security issues. And in particular, we've seen a lot of crackdowns on African migrants in places like Nana, central Bangkok. My question is just, has there been any organizing within the African diaspora here in Bangkok to sort of resist some of these highly racialized enforcement policies against the African migrant population here? Thanks.
Cuban, here in the back. Introduce yourself.
Oh, hello. My name is Stephanie Santos. I'm a Fulbright Fellow at Chula right now, and thank you so much for this talk. So I'm very compelled by the point you were saying about how migration is heavily skewed as male. So I was just wondering if you had thoughts through a gendered lens. We know, for example, that migration and gender impact one another through different labor regimes, different visa regimes, for example. And I was curious if you had preliminary findings or insights about the gender of migration, the migration of gender between Thailand, African continent, and maybe Southeast Asia in general. Thank you.
You wanted to.
Oh, I just want to share, some things with you, Lalita, again. I think you guys Nigerians, you're fine. I had the worst case for me was with Ghanaians applying for Thai visa in Nigeria. And, the strict rule of the Thai embassy in Abuja is that every Ghanaian or every citizens of, surrounding countries, including Ghana, including Ivory Coast, they have to be present in Abuja, but the fact that, Ghanaians and Nigerians, they're like, oh, we're better, they bluff all the time, right? We're French speaking, we're English speaking, there is this thing going on. So from my Ghanaian friends, to be present in Abuja, having to apply for the Thai visa in Nigeria is a bit like, why do we have to do that? And for me, I've been bringing some African friends, colleagues and comrades during the last couple of years for our meetings and conferences at Kasit University. And there's always been a problem. A month ago, I had to help one friend of mine from Zambia and another guy from Senegal. They both had problems with the immigration. But I found out one trick that my friends could get out of this problem very easily, and that is you have to have a very strong connection with some of the big guys at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or the immigration. I do have some connection. They're my friends, and because I work with the ministry as well, so I get to know some people, and that's really helpful and hopeful. Anyways, that's how it works in Thailand, and I
Okay,
hope
so
this
now
will
you
change
know
some.
if you need help, you just go to Lalita. Yeah, okay, so I think no more question, right? No more questions, so please, whoever wants to comment, yeah.
I may answer, and maybe the one related to the number and the Thai. I think the number roughly of African in Thailand, I think the one with the document, actually in reality maybe more than that. They just say around, especially in the urban, they just say that it's around 8,000, which is I do not trust that number. I think it's more than that. But that what the number that they said, which is maybe not true in my information, because, and this is also the problem with this integration of information that I said in the first place, because they do not have link between the people who come to the immigration channel and which nationality they are, and dealing with that. I think at the moment, with the digitalization, they said we will know more, but at the moment we don't know much anyway, but in the future we will have more. Why in comparison with ASEAN or at least the neighboring country? Because that person registered to the Ministry of Labor. So we have, I mean, exact number that they put on the website every day. But for the African friend who come to the airport and come maybe with the tourist visa, they do not collect that how many, and those who stay longer because they consider as a tourist. But those who register with the long stay visa, like a student visa or working visa, that's the one they say, but in reality, maybe not true. The number will be more than that. The second issue with Ben, I think this is a kind of what you call, like Ajahn Kasit said, aphobia. I mean, the feeling of phobia. But more than that, because now Thailand is become paranoid with the issue of human trafficking. I mean, the more they have been talking about what you call cyber scheme, they become, I mean, looking at those who are, I mean, native English speaker. But I don't know, I think this is a kind of the racism or a kind of phobia that rather than looking at the, I mean, white skin, they're just seeing those who are English speaking, native English speaker that who might be prone to the crime or to be the traffic victim become, I mean, as the African. I mean, for instance, the case that you talk about, Nana, I think this is also in our chapter. They have the read by the police talking of that they have the case of the drug trafficker, which is for me, it's no evidence to support. It might be, yes, some people carry narcotics, but why you just only picking one nationality or one type of the skin, and why it's become generalized. So that's why this is a problem that happened in Thailand. And since you are from ILO, you might know that in the future, people will look at Masot, not on the Burma issue. Will be on the issue of what you call Jintao, gray China, gray Chinese with cyber scam. And the cyber scam is also those who's English speaking. And you will see that if you go to Masot at Hue Hin Phon, you will see a certain military checkpoint asking every African people who go to Masot that where do you go, how do you go, what are you going to do? And I think this is, I don't know if this is good or bad, but I think it's also show that Thailand may not know how to deal with this. And I think this is might be the work of the university, which is we are still really poor how to dealing with that.
I finish with Elizabeth. Oh, okay. Yes, okay, Anthony, one moment, and then I
Okay,
think
just to add up to what you've said, actually African population in Thailand is huge. But it's also part of institutional, or if you like, systemic kind of racism. Data disaggregation is what Africans also suffer in Thailand. Particularly the number of Africans who arrive in Thailand is usually not made public. And there's no reason to justify that. The essence is this: when you enter Thailand, there's a biometric system that collects the data automatically. But we realize that there is usually no data. And as a person, I've stayed in Thailand for 20 years and I've experienced a lot of census. But then when they walk into your door and they realize you are an African, they just pass. Yeah, because what that means is a kind of institutional racism. When you're not known, because data is power. When you're not known, then nobody says nothing about you. And then the whole thing continues the way it is. So I think it's a deliberate act, and there's no way we can justify that. And take, for instance, in 2019 alone, 236,338 Africans arrived Thailand. And most of these, that's a huge number. And most of these people, the migration partners changed from a temporary stay to more desire for permanent stay in Thailand, but usually we don't know that. For instance, along Soinana, in the last 10 years, we've seen all African businesses there disappear because of constant immigration rate. Like, there's no absolute reason. Immigration show up at their businesses every day. Therefore, no customers want to come around. So eventually, the businesses die natural death and they all disappear. So you go there, it's a deliberate attempt to actually keep the whole area white. And today you go there, you only see white businesses there. And this is replicated even in Pratunam area. There are very few surviving African businesses in Pratunam today. A similar thing is happening as well. So I am just sharing this experience, hoping that something can be done about it so that we can, you know, and talking about African diaspora in Thailand, yes, there's a strong African community. But again, just like His Excellency said, African issues have always been treated as a rented car that nobody cares to wash. That's the only thing, you know. We talked about them, we have these policies, but implementation is always the problem. And at the end of the day, Nigeria, for instance, has a Chamber of Commerce. Responding to your question, there's a Chamber of Commerce established in Thailand, but it's just a paper tiger. It does nothing at the end of the day. So it is business as usual. Thank you.
Okay, last word to Ajahn Supang and Elisabetta, please. Your last word of wisdom.
Start first, okay? Or Esvita, would you like to go first?
Go.
Okay, so there are many issues, and I found that this book is like a carpet, and today's discussion is like finding so many things under the carpet, and with that, it means that we have more things to do in the future. And Excellency Kasit talk about the situation from the viewpoint of the NGOs rather than foreign affairs. I'm not sure whether the situation remain as it was in terms of visa, in terms of immigration. Of course, there are some facts, but some media would say that the media blow out too much about Africans being criminals in Thailand. And we totally agree with that. So how Thai people would perceive about Africans and their existence and possible integration in Thailand depends a lot on the media, because we consume that through media. We do not have a direct contact in our everyday life. And with that, I was thinking about having some kinds of Friends of Africans club or association to be set up. I got this idea when I visited Dien Bien Phu 20 years ago. They celebrated the victory at Dien Bien Phu. And there I found a group of French people who introduced themselves as friends of the Vietnamese. And they were the French who were not supporting the French government or the African policy, and they were real friends of the Vietnamese. And we should think about having friends of Africans here in Thailand in order to put things under the carpet, uncovered, and then see how to solve those things. At Chula 20 years ago, former President Tien Chai once would like Chula to have an African Study Center, But at that time, there was no interest and there was no issue to look at this at all. And the idea was in the wind. Now, from the responses and reaction from the floor, I think that it's time that we can think about this more seriously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, for the very good idea. I hope not only friends of Africans, but also friends of all migrants. Okay, please, yes, Elisabetta.
Thank you. Wonderful discussion, many different things. I'm not sure if it's under the carpet or above the carpet. I encourage you to read the book because many of the answers to the questions that you were asking are actually there. So for example, the issue of the Chamber of Commerce, and Pranjal writes beautifully about Chantaburi and about the Gem Traders Association that the African Gem Traders Association wants to be part of, and they don't want them. Then I am no friend of immigration officers anywhere in the world. But we can't just say that this is the system because these officers live in the regular Thai communities. So what came first, the chicken or the egg? Have they become so prejudiced and so racist because of the jobs? Or were the kernels of that prejudice already in the communities? So I think we say in the last chapter that, from our perspective as researchers, in the next book, if I live that long, would be to study Thai people and their opinions about people of color, who they are also, and about Africans, because we only got a one-sided a kind of a viewpoint. So there's plenty of things to to unpack. The statistics is we asked a colleague, actually a demographer that shall remain nameless, to contribute a chapter to this book, and he said there is really no significant statistics to look at that a demographer or a statistician could really do anything with this. So, we can be talking about what the community estimates, how many there are. I mean, even if there's 10,000 or 20,000, this is a drop in the bucket. So this is still a small community. So my last comment is also, with all due respect of the calls for the embassies and for all these high placed people to come to the fore, I think that might not necessarily, I mean, integration happens on the ground. Integration does not happen at the level of the embassy. The ambassador can't speak freely anywhere, any ambassador anywhere in the world. They have to do the party line. But the people within the community can. On the other hand, and Anthony is better equipped to answer that than I am, on the other hand, can Africans organize themselves? This is the visibility and invisibility issue, right? Because if they organize and they go on barricades and fight for their rights, they become even more visible. And their strategy in many instances is to lay low, don't rock the boat, that kind of stuff. When will, my question from a pure research point of view is, when will be the time that the tide will be favorable to the diasporic community, and when they will be able to organize and voice their concerns and that sort of thing? Because the way the immigration enforcement goes right now, I would be very fearful to do that. So that's my 3 cents for maybe next steps.
Yes, so thank you very much to all the speakers, both the one online, Ajahn Supang, thank you again for initiating the process with the book and also with accepting the invitation to present it here at SEA-Junction. Unfortunately, we do not have the book. We just have one copy of the book. It's very precious, this book, but you can find it online. and you can order it online. So, and we can also order for you and try to negotiate a better price eventually if there is enough interest. But to Routledge, oh yeah, but probably more expensive even. But Routledge, you can order on the publisher, on the public. Take a picture and then. But indeed, if you are interested, you can leave your name and then we can try to order multiple.
We cannot guarantee for discount, but maybe you can mention that you join the book discussion at SEA-Junction, and we have the 2 editors, so we might try to use our connection for some discount to the publishing house.
Everywhere
cannot
connection
buy.
works. That is the solution. Okay,
Well, we
thank
must
you.
be making a discount.
We stayed half hour more, but for those who still want to continue, there is coffee, tea, and some snacks that you can enjoy here while continue to chit chat. The next event in our case will be an exhibition of drawing from insane prison we give a lot of attention to Myanmar. So that will be in May, as well as we continue with the regular monthly updates on Myanmar. And I think that's it for the time. Yes, and this I should not forget because my colleague from Mahidol is here, 2 of them, and here, there. And we are very happy to have the opportunity to collaborate with IPSR, which is also my institute, the Institute for Population and Social Research of Mahidol University. There is a Wednesday seminar that goes on, and the last Wednesday of the month normally, but sometimes we change the dates, is always dedicated to the collaboration with SEA-Junction, which focus on migration issue relevant to Southeast Asia. So continue to follow us and also follow the regular Wednesday seminar of IPSR that are always on related topic to migration, mobility, aging, and all issue related to population. So thank you very much. Most of the time they are online, but today we were very happy to do it in person, and probably we will do more on site as it is more fun. So thank you very much again, and see you to the next activity.